So when you're trying to set up a window manager, there's a ton of different status bars you can pick from, and from what I see, at least with bspwm, two of the popular ones seem to be Polybar and Lemonbar. Now, most people tend to gravitate towards Polybar because it is way easier to configure. So if you want a Polybar setup, pretty much all you have to do is download Polybar, make a couple of basic scripts, and then you've got a bunch of modules. And that's pretty much all you have to do. Whereas with Lemonbar, if you want to do things like have IPC or have partial updates, you have to go and actually write that yourself. So Lemonbar, when you actually first run it, it's just a blank bar with literally nothing in it. It won't do partial updates. It won't even have an update loop. You have to go and do all of that yourself. So Lemonbar, I guess, is more of a hacker's status bar. So recently I decided to go try it out and see what I can actually put together. Now keep in mind that everything I'm going to show you is going to be from my experience using it. You can make Lemonbar way better than I've been using it, and I will point out the places where I guess the problems are kind of my fault rather than them being problems with Lemonbar itself. So let's go have a look at what I've done. Now, before we get to anything else, I just want to talk about installing Lemonbar. So with Lemonbar, it has tons and tons of different forks available. So some of the forks add things like emoji support, some add things like XFT font support, some have automatic update loops, and there's just a bunch of forks like that. And because of this, all of the different forks, they are completely incompatible with each other and they all conflict with each other. Now, when you're trying to decide on which version of Lemonbar to actually use, you might think, well, if I don't know what to use, I might as well just use the base version, and that's where you'd be wrong. You don't want to use the base version because the base version doesn't have XFT font support, so that means you won't be able to use most of the basic fonts you have installed on your system. So most people tend to go with a specific version, and on Arch Linux, the way you install that is by doing yay-s lemonbar-xft-git. So this one comes with XFT font support, and for the most part, this will be fine. Now, this won't come with things like emoji support, but if you don't care about having emojis, this one will be fine. So if we just try to install Lemonbar like this, you'll see what I mean by all of the forks. And these are just the forks that are available on the AUR. So we have things like Lemonbar-clicks, the base version of Lemonbar, so Lemonbar-git, Lemonbar-sm-git, Lemonbar-ucs4-git. I don't know what UCS4 is. I'm guessing that's, I don't know, it's something that it's supporting. So this version of Lemonbar would have UCS4 support, and then the version that most people tend to recommend by default is Lemonbar-xft-git. And I'm going to be in agreement with that one. If you don't know what else to use, I would recommend just picking this one. Now, if you do want emoji support, I haven't actually found a version that does properly support it. There's a couple that are supposed to, but when I try to run them, either the XFT fonts stop working or the emojis just don't work out of the box anyway. So I don't know what's happening there. For whatever reason, I can't seem to get emoji support. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm not really fully planning to switch over to Lemonbar, at least at this stage. But once you worked out which version of Lemonbar to actually use, it doesn't really get much easier from there, but we do get into the fun part then. Now, when it comes to actually configuring Lemonbar, this is where you start to see the biggest difference between this and Polybar. So with Lemonbar, you can do literally anything with it. So the thing with Lemonbar is all it's going to show is whatever you output to stand it out. So you can just make a program in C, you can make a program in Python, you can write your own programming language for it, you can do it in shell script. It doesn't care what you do it in, as long as the text is being output to stand it out and being piped into Lemonbar. So what I mean by this is, let's say we did something like echo, and let's echo hello world, and let's just pipe that into Lemonbar. Now I'll have to use the -p option, which basically makes it so it won't automatically close if it's not receiving extra text. So we run this now, and as you might be able to see up in this top corner here, there's a bit of text up here that says hello world. Now obviously, when you're actually going to run a proper status bar, you're going to want to do a bit more than that, and you're not going to want the text to be that small. So you're going to want to have some way to, I guess, easily configure the Lemonbar. Now, there's different ways this can be handled, but On the Arch Linux wiki, the way that it shows is two different files. So we have the launcher file and we have the configuration file. So the launcher file will basically start up the update program. So whatever you have that has an update loop in it or has some sort of event system that's going to keep outputting stuff to the Lemonbar, it will start up the Lemonbar and it will clean up any previous instances. So if you wanted to do something like relaunch the launcher, instead of having to go and actually kill Lemonbar first, you can have the launcher actually clean up all of those old processes. And this is how I like to do it. It just makes it a little bit easier. Now, the other file that I have is the configuration file. So this is where you actually configure what is going to be in the actual Lemonbar itself. So for me, I actually have my update loop in here. So let's actually go and have a look at how that will look. So in my scripts folder, I've got a folder called Lemonbar, and in here I've got two scripts. So I've got my launch lemon script and my lemon config script. So we'll just go briefly over what launch lemon does, and then I'll show you what my Lemonbar actually looks like. So in this case, pretty much what launch lemon is going to do is kill off my Lemonbar and my lemon configs, just so if I try to launch up another bar, just so I'm not going to get another bar overlaid on top of that one. And then after that, I'm basically starting up the bar. So what I'm doing is I'm running lemon config, which is basically an infinite loop that'll keep outputting text every 5 seconds or when I tell it to update. And then I'm just basically piping that into the Lemonbar program where I'm running -p. -p will make it so it just won't automatically close if it's not receiving an update. -g is basically going to specify the dimensions of the Lemonbar itself. So in this case, it's 1920 wide, so all the way across my screen. It's 32 high, just so it can match up with the height of my polybar here. And then the X and the Y position is set to 0, 0, so it'll spawn up in the top left corner here. Then we've got my basic foreground color, which is basically white. We've got my basic background color, which is a dark gray. Both of these can be configured in the polybar itself, but these are just the default values. Then we've got my underline color, which is the same underline color you see up here, so it's a light bluey color. The offset of the text, which I've got set to -4 for this font right here. So that basically makes it so that bit of font is going to be centered. Then we've got my second font with an offset of -2, and that font is basically just being used for symbols. And this is here just because I do like having some sort of symbols in my bar, but I can't actually use emoji. So instead of doing emoji, I'm going to do hack nerd font instead. And for whatever reason, these symbols seem to be smaller than they probably should be, so I've had to go and actually increase that font size. And then at the end, I'm just piping into my shell. Now, I'm not sure why it's like this, but it seems that I have to actually pipe into my shell to make the action handlers work. Now, I don't know why Lemonbar's like this, but as I'll show you in just a bit, if I remove this pipe at the end, the action handlers stop working. So let's actually go have a look at how this bar actually looks. Now, I'll increase the font size just so it's a little bit easier for you guys to see. So let's say 14, and I guess we can raise this up to 18. Now, this will probably mess with my offsets, but hopefully it's not too bad. Okay, that functions, I guess. So you can probably read the text that's going on up here, and as you can see, it's missing a bit compared to my polybar, and I'll talk about why it's like that in just a bit, but it's still a perfectly functional bar. So if I go to my second desktop, as you can see, it changes which desktop I'm actually focused on. You can't actually see that I'm focused on my 8th desktop because that one's actually on my second monitor, but that's where I'm focused right now. And we can go over to other desktops, and that's all working perfectly fine. And if we hover over here, it doesn't actually change my mouse cursor, but this right here actually has an action handler bound to it. So if I click on this, as you can see, it opens up HTOP. Now, I'll just kill off Lemonbar and show you what happens if I get rid of that pipe at the end. And if we click on this now, as you can see, this action handler isn't actually working anymore. So for whatever reason, Lemonbar is set up like this where you have to pipe at the end to make your action handlers work. I don't know why it's like that. It's just set up like that though. So if we click on this now, as you can see, it works now. And everything else in this bar is kind of the way you'd expect it to be from just a regular sort of status bar. Now, one thing you might notice is if I change my focus on a window, it's not automatically going to update the window name like it would with something like Polybar. And the reason for this is because I've actually got the name updating as part of the regular update loop. I haven't actually put it into its own thing yet like the workspace switching over here is. So I need to fix that, but I just haven't gone and done so yet. But if I do actually update my volume, that is its own separate thing, so that will update as soon as I tell it to update, assuming assuming that the bar hasn't slowed down a bunch. And making your bar really slow down actually is really easy to do if you don't know what you're doing with scripting, and I'm not really that great at it, so my bar will slow down a bit if I add a few too many modules. So let's just go over to my other script and you'll see what I mean. So in here, the way that most people tend to configure their bar, or at least in the basic usage, is you'll have a bunch of different functions, and then at the end, you'll have a function that combines them. So as you can see, I've got things like my workspaces function, my CPU temp function, CPU function, clock function, so on and so forth. And then right down the bottom here, we've got my update function. Now, I'm using echo-e. This should be a printf just because I've got this marked as an sh script. I just haven't gone and actually changed that yet. Ignore that for now. I'll go and fix that at some point. Anyway, what I'm doing in here is basically combining all of those functions and then setting their alignment. And the way that you do alignment is actually pretty easy, but you first have to understand how a Lemonbar tag is actually formed. So basically, it is composed of a percentage sign, a left curly brace and a right curly brace, and then some sort of tag inside of that. So in this case, we're using L, and L means to do a left alignment, and we've got a right alignment over here, and that basically contains an R. Now you can also do center alignment, which is a C, and all of these tags can be seen over on the GitHub page here. Say a background color, you would have a B, and then you would specify the color, or you could do something like a foreground color, which is an F, specify the color, or an underline color, which is U, and then specify the color. And as you can see, that pretty much makes perfect sense. So we can do left alignment like this, right alignment like this. And let's go see how the colors would work, because yes, it's pretty similar, but there is a little bit extra you can do as well. So as you can see, I'm setting the color here. So in this case, I'm setting it to this color right here, which is this slightly lighter gray, so I can basically highlight each of the different modules. And then I can stop that color by basically having a percentage sign, a left curly brace, the thing I want to stop, and then a right curly brace. So in this case, I want to stop whatever background color that I've defined here. So in this case, once I run this tag, it's going to switch back to the regular background color. And if you want to do underline, setting the underline color isn't actually enough to do an underline. What you have to do is also do +U. So that means turn on underline, and then to turn off underline, you do -U. Now, the only other tag that works in this way is the Overline tag, which is done with a lowercase o, I believe. So yes, if we were to change this one right here to being an O, what this is going to do is activate Overline, and this one over here is going to deactivate Overline. So let's just rerun this and I'll show you what I mean. So launch Lemon. As you can see, all of the underlines on this side have turned into Overline. So let's just switch that back. As you can see, they've all switched back to underline. Now, if I was to remove this -U at the end, what it's going to do is make it so the underline isn't actually going to stop. So once underline starts, it's just going to keep going. So if I don't know, we'll just change this to O just because I don't feel like removing the entire tag. We'll launch Lemon again. And once the first underline starts in this block here, basically it's just going to keep going until the bar actually ends. So if you want to have partial sections of your lemon bar with, say, a specific background color or a specific underline color, or just underlines on in general, make sure that you're actually running the end tag in there. Now, it might not be entirely clear how Lemonbar actually works from this bit of an example here, but what I would recommend is look at what the tags you want to use are, and then break it down into, I guess, very small sections. So if you just want to do something like have a module over to the right here, and let's just say you want to have it echo hello world or something. So actually, you know what? We're just going to get rid of everything in my bar right now. And what we're going to do is we're just going to do that. So let's just start from having basically nothing in this bar, and let's just have this right aligned. So we'll have this right aligned, and let's say we'll have this module in here, and we'll call it something like new module. Okay. Now, if we just make a new function here, we'll call the function the same thing we called it over here. So in this case, new module. And basically what we're going to do is, let's say we want it to be something like hello world. Okay, so we're going to have it be hello world, but what sort of formatting do we actually want to do to it? Let's say we want to have this be underlined. So if we do percentage sign, we do curly brace, and then inside of here, we do +U. This is basically going to enable the underline. So let's, on the other side, go and disable the underline. So do that -U. Okay, so if we just launch Lemon again, you'll see that this is basically just going to have one module in it. It's going to be right aligned, it's going to have an underline, and the text in there is going to say hello world. As you can see, it's done exactly as I've said. So let's say we also wanted this to have a different foreground color. So what we can do with this is we can do %, curly braces, and then the F tag. So F tag is for the foreground color, and I have no idea what this color is going to be, but let's do I don't know, F4, E3, sure, whatever that color is going to be. I have literally no idea what that color is going to be. And then we can go and close the tag on the other side. So do an F on this side, and that's going to go and close that tag. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that make sure that your closing tags and your opening tags are at the same level. So for example, with this right here, we open up the F tag, we open up the underline tag. Before you go and close the F tag, make sure you first go and close the underline tag, just because it might start to cause some problems if you do it in the wrong order. So let's just rerun this and see what the color is going to be. Now that's some sort of cyany green color. I have no idea what you'd call this. It looks cyan, I guess. I don't know. Whatever that's showing up on YouTube as. So let's change that instead to being the background color, because we realize maybe it makes a bit more sense to have white text and then we have a different background color instead. So save this and then relaunch the Lemonbar. Now, as you can see, the text is still white, but now we have a different background color. So as you can see, it's pretty straightforward how to actually build these modules, as long as you actually go and break them down into, I guess, different components. So don't try to tackle the entire bar at once. Break it down into different modules, and it's going to make a ton more sense to actually write. Now, here is where we get into, I guess, the big problem with Lemonbar. So because Lemonbar doesn't actually help you with anything, it's very easy to write a bar that is basically unusable. So instead of doing this bar here, let's do the bar I have that has basically everything that I have in my Polybar. And this bar, the way that I've written it, is basically unusable. Now, this isn't the fault of Lemonbar. This is my fault for not going and writing the bar in a more efficient way. So it looks fine right now, but let's actually try and say, focus on a different desktop. There's a noticeable delay there. So let's try to do something else like raise the volume level. Yeah, here you go. You can probably notice it gets pretty bad. Some of the times things don't even appear in their proper spot. Sometimes colors go and shift over to places they shouldn't be in. This isn't Lemonbar's fault whatsoever. This is a problem of just doing the basic usage of Lemonbar. So if you're just going to do a basic update loop like I have, where pretty much every 5 seconds what it's going to do is it's going to update the bar, it basically becomes unusable after maybe 3 or 4 modules. So keep that in mind, especially if you're going to do what I've done alongside the update loop. What I mean by this is, as you can see in this loop down here, I'm not just calling the update function, and I'm not just calling the sleep. So we're running the update function, and then we're sleeping for 5 seconds, but I'm forking the sleep into the background by doing an ampersand, and then after that I'm running wait. Now you might be wondering why I'm actually doing that. So if we go back up to the first line, you may have noticed that, but I've got the trap command right here. So what trap is going to do is basically let you trap a signal. So in this case, it's going to trap signal 5, and when signal 5 pops up, what it's going to do is run the update function. So whenever that signal pops up, it's just going to re-update the bar. Now, there are more efficient ways to do this, but basically what I'm doing this for is so I can go and do things like change my volume level or switch to different desktops, or what I also should be doing is changing what window I'm focusing on and having that re-update the bar. So what I should be doing with that is having only that subsection of the bar update rather than the entire bar update. Now, obviously that would be significantly quicker, but you can probably start to see what the problem is going to be there. It gets very, very complex to actually start doing stuff like that. Now, there are better ways to do it, and some people actually have written, I guess, what you'd call them would be lemon block managers. So I've got this one over here that I'm going to show you. Now, I'm going to do a dedicated video on this, but this is basically lemon blocks, which I guess is sort of like i3 blocks and DWM blocks, and just makes it much, much easier to actually write your bar, and not just write your bar, also make it so your bar is going to be quick. So this will handle things like your update loop, and basically making it so you can do partial updates without really needing to think about it. And there's a bunch of other ways you can do this as well, and I've actually got kind of a list of Lemonbar managers. So if you don't want to, I guess, do every single thing from scratch and make your own update loop, make your own partial updates, make your own IPC system, do all of this stuff yourself, what I would recommend doing is trying out one of these Lemonbar managers. Now, you might be saying, well, at that point, why don't you just go and use something like Polybar? And that's a fair point, because if you are using a Lemonbar manager, you basically are using something like Polybar or i3 blocks at that point. So I don't know if you can really justify using Lemonbar at that point, besides, I guess, the tagging system. But I guess it's kind of up to you and what you want to actually do on your system. Now, if you do want to do everything from scratch with the status bar, Lemonbar is probably the best way to go about doing that, because it doesn't hold your hand whatsoever. You basically get a tagging system to do formatting, and apart from that, it's basically free game. Do whatever you want. You want to have your own update loop in C, you want to not have an update loop at all, and you want to do everything based on events and have everything be partial updates. I actually did see a post on Reddit where someone actually did that. They didn't have an update loop whatsoever. Basically what they had is they had every single module in their Lemonbar basically update on their own individual loop, which all had individual times. So for example, the clock was on like a 1-second timer, the CPU temperature was on a 10-second timer, the CPU usage was on a 5-second timer, for example. And then the stuff that needed to just be event-based, when you focused on different desktops, when you focused on different windows, when you changed your volume level, all of that stuff was done purely event-based, and the rest of the stuff had their own individual update loops, and that made it so it was a really, really quick bar. Now, I made you a video on that one, or I made you a video on one of these Lemonbar managers that lets you do that, but as for doing raw Lemonbar myself, I think it's a bit much for me, at least right now. I kind of just want a bar that works. But it is something really cool for you guys if you do want to try it out for yourself. So I think that's pretty much everything for me, but before I go, I want to thank my patrons. So a special thank you to Joachim, Craig, Nathan, Andrew, Montezar, Peter, Lee, Rowe, Tony, Chris, Donald, and Zilva. I had an extra name added to that, and I was almost going to skip over that. So if you want to go support my Patreon, there'll be a link to that down below, as well as my Amazon affiliate links where you can buy the gear I use in this channel, or anything else you want, and I'll get a small kickback for it. Also, I'm going to check out my podcast, that is Tech Over Tea, available on Library and YouTube, and the audio version available wherever you listen to audio podcasts. Also remember to check out this channel, available on Library, BitTube, and BitChute. And remember to smash the like button and leave me a comment down below. And remember to subscribe and ding the little bell icon down below as well. So I think that's pretty much everything for me, and I'm out.